Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, party people. It's Friday night, Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, my buddy James. Just a couple of dudes hanging out, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. This is episode 163 of Gridiron Grinder. And for tonight, we're going to kick things off with Name That Stadium. Then we're going to cover the news from this past week. After that, we're going to give you our Week 7 power rankings and game picks. And then we're going to close it off with our question of the week. And so, yeah, with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's Friday. It's going good, I guess. I talked before. It's a little bit of a rough week, but I'm dealing with it.
Yeah, no, you got a few things going on where you could definitely do some griping, and I think it would be pretty well justified. So, but you don't need to air your dirty laundry on Gridiron Grinder. So,
Exactly.
unless you really want to, I mean, it's our show.
Nah.
We do whatever we want, right? So, maybe
Yeah,
later. Maybe later.
maybe later. Maybe later.
All right. Well, hey, man, how about you do some Name That Stadium for us?
All right. People need to participate in this. Nobody is popping a guess, and sometimes it's really fucking obvious where I am. It's just quick. You put the you guess your first person guess right. We'll give you an extra special shout out and bookmark it. Heck, at this point, if you guess and you guess wrong, we might give you the extra special shout out and bookmark it because nobody's fucking playing anymore. Um, but generally, as you can see, I'm traveling around different stadiums that host NFL games. Last week, I was in Jacksonville for who the fuck played? Um, Somebody at the Jags. It was the Colts at the Jags because I thought it was going to be a decent game. I completely forgot about Anthony Richardson being out for the game when I thought it was going to be a decent game. But that's why I picked there. Also with I could have gone. I thought I was already at Raymond James this year, so I didn't go there.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, we're having a bit of a weak showing these days, James. I
Yeah.
actually had one of our buddies called it out earlier today when I was talking to him. I was just like, "Oh, what do you do, man?" I don't know if it's the YouTube algorithm that changed or if it's because regular football started or what, but those golden days of 200 plus views they're pretty far in the rear view now, my man.
Yeah. No, I know. It's frustrating, but hey, we'll have to advertise it more somehow.
Yeah, we'll come up with something. All right, well, yeah, let's do our recap of the past week then. And so, James, I have this in no particular order, and I have no doubt I'm missing some stuff from this past week, but I'll just start off by hitting some of the injury stuff from this past week, some of it's carryover stuff or whatever. But Jimmy G, he is being ruled out for the Raiders game this weekend. Looks like Brian Hoyer is going to start,
Mhm.
not Aiden O'Connell. Um, hey, Hoyer's been around a long time. They want the trusty veteran, so let's see how
Yeah,
he can do.
isn't it like something like 16 years between wins if he wins this game?
Man, yeah, I mean, hey, he's a Sparty, so I'm glad he's still hanging around, man. He's the Michigan State version of Chad Henne, except he wasn't
Yeah,
drafted anywhere near as high as Henne.
I'm
I
gonna
can
look
see
it
you
up
looking
because
it
it's
up.
been a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah, and so while you're looking it up, I'll just keep going through the injuries. We got Justin Fields. He is also going to be out. He's got that dislocated thumb that he's coming back from. In their case, rookie Tyson Bagent is going to start. He came in last week when Fields got hurt. Honestly, looked like a deer in the headlights, but as the game went on, you could tell he was getting a little more poise to him, and he looked really freaking good in the preseason for a rookie, especially. But you got to take it all with a grain of salt because it's against a bunch of other, rookies and backup caliber guys in the preseason. So.
Yeah, so Brian Hoyer's last win in an NFL start was 2000. It's been 2,576 days, or it
Okay,
will be 2,576
if
days
he gets the win.
on Sunday. If because Sunday is the 2,576 day. Last win was October 2nd, 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. for the Bears in Chicago against the Lions.
Okay.
So, yeah, like I said, it's been like 16 years.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, and then in other injury news, you got Daniel Jones is questionable. I heard he is not cleared for contact yet with that neck injury. And so it seems like he's probably going to be out, but there's an outside chance that he gets cleared and he ends up playing. I don't see why they would rush him. Tyrod
Yeah.
Taylor played fine. You know, he's a super conservative guy, but, you know, look at what they did against Buffalo, man. They hung in there pretty well by playing good defense and just not turning the ball over. Then you got Anthony Richardson. So he hurt his shoulder a couple weeks ago. He ended up going through with or decided to have the season-ending shoulder surgery, and so his
I
season
think,
officially done.
yeah, I think it was more of the team push for it, and it like because I had seen an article about it. I didn't read the article, but the headline was how Andrew Luck's injury affected the treatment for Anthony Richardson's injury.
Gotcha.
So I
Okay.
think the team was push for him to do that. You know, just get the surgery, get it taken care of now.
Come back
Uh,
right, and then let's
yeah,
start working again. Yeah. Yeah, and that's tough, man, because so early in his rookie year, you know, and I worried that with like the first couple games with the way he was running, it was just like, oh man, you know, it's like unnecessary risk for a guy that you know needs to develop his passing skills. But at the same time, you want him out there doing what he does best
hmm
and sort of like honing his skill. And so it just, you know, it just sucks. You can't predict the injuries, but there sure as heck have been a lot of them this year.
yeah. There have been a lot of them. I'm looking for that article to see a little bit more on it, but I'm not finding it.
Okay. Well, and then on the flip side, we've got a quarterback coming back from injury. Kyler Murray is designated to return from the PUP list, and so we may see him in the not too distant future taking reps at quarterback for Arizona. So, and that might tie into some question of the week stuff because I've heard some rumors about Marquise Brown potentially being on the trade block, and but if Kyler's coming back and how well they've been hanging in games, even though they've been losing most of them, it makes you wonder if they would see what that connection's like and could it get them over the hump having Kyler back before they'd pull the plug. But they're running out of time. Trade deadline's on the 31st. So,
hmm Yeah. So
um,
yes. So it was the team because so it's how the team treated Luck's injury gave them the uh, kind of path to how to proceed with Richardson's. And it was Ursay said he's a competitor and we know how difficult and disappointing this is for him and our team. We collected several medical opinions and we felt this was the best course of action for his long-term health. So yeah, so I think it was more the teams like, you know, sat him down and was like, you know, you probably really should get the surgery. This is what happened previously with Andrew Luck because then Andrew Luck had another injury because he hurt it in preseason, had another and came back, but
I got you. Okay. All right. So, in other news, James, we've got Mecole Hardman talking about the trade deadline coming. Mecole Hardman being traded from the Jets to the Chiefs. So
hmm
he's going to reunite with Patrick Mahomes, maybe give him a little bit more stability in that passing game, which has been freaking god awful. The last I heard, and I am not surprised, they are leading the league in dropped passes, and so it's been pretty rough there. And then I saw another wide receiver, Julio Jones, has signed with the Philadelphia Eagles, and so I don't know what
We can move on.
results they're going to get out of him. I
We can move
heard
on.
that,
If this was like 7 years ago, it'd be news. We can
yeah,
just move on from it.
yeah, but well, no, and that's the interesting thing that I wanted to say is that I heard they're going to start him on the practice squad and they're going to keep him there until they think he's ready to be activated to the 53-man roster. And I just kind of thought, wow, like a seasoned veteran of his stature being put on the practice squad, it just goes to show you the best days are behind him. But hey, maybe they get him up to whatever up to par physically, and he can be like a third down, move the chains kind of specialist or something for them. We've seen wide receivers in the past sort of do that as they get older. They carve out a role where they're like just such a great route runner. They can get you that third down, and
Hmm.
that's about all they're going to be good for. So,
So, but we've seen this before in the past. Like last year, who was the running back that the Ravens? It was an Ingram. The Ravens signed him, but signed him to the practice squad, so he's not taking up a roster spot while he gets acclimated to the system, and then they elevate him
yeah,
once he's acclimated to the system.
I hear you. I don't have a lot of faith in it. So,
I I'm not saying it's a good move. Like I said, we can move on. Like if it was 6 years ago, maybe,
yeah.
but it's not real news anymore.
Okay. And so then, James, the last thing I got is that it looks like flag football is going to be in the 2028 Olympics, my man. And I've already heard that supposedly Tyreek Hill, among others, are going to commit to being on that first team. So, that can make it interesting for sure. But you're looking, I mean, it's 2023, so you're looking at like 5 years out. It's like, man, it's exciting to hear a name like Tyreek Hill, but we don't know how the hell he's going to be physically or anything 5 years from now. So we kind of got to just wait and see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean that's so far from now. Like a
Yeah.
million things could happen
Yeah,
on
and
that.
we know there will be talent. There's going to be talent. There's going to be guys with blazing speed and all that, and some guys are going to do it, and it should be cool. But I want real football. So, but I'll take flag football if that's what there is. So,
Yeah. So one thing, I swear we talked about it. I might have talked about it with you because they're saying it had. So this article isn't. Did he have another verbal did Jamal Adams have another verbal conversation what's the word I'm looking for? Confrontation with a neurospecialist? Because remember a couple weeks ago when he had the concussion and he
yeah.
was out, and so this article says that the NFL has fined Seattle safety Jamal Adams $50,000 for his actions towards a concussion doctor on the sideline during the team's Week 6 game against the Bengals.
Wow. I mean, if he went off again, that's just like shame on him. You should know after having one just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so it's it's a little weird because like I'm trying to look into more because I do not remember seeing it. I don't remember hearing about that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't remember us talking about it either. I remember us talking about the first one.
Oh, so apparently he was shouting "He good" as the doctor neurotrauma consultant was looking at Jake, wide receiver Jake Bobo.
Okay, so it wasn't even
And
about
there
him,
was
it was about somebody
no,
else.
yeah, so there was an exchange about like a wide receiver or something, and that he was being evaluated for a concussion, and Jamal Adams was yelling at him, yelling about him. It's like, was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you're not the doctor, dude.
Yeah. And the other thing I saw was Darian Kendrick was arrested Wednesday night
I don't
in
even know
Hollywood.
who that is, man.
He's a cornerback for the Rams.
Okay, wow, that name it doesn't ring a bell at all, but I know they've like totally flipped that or that defensive back with the fucking Ramsey and everybody out of there. Holy cow. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean let me take a look at his game log. So he's played every game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he must have been whoever they had step up this year because they had some holes to fill.
yeah, I want to look at. I'm just going to look at their depth chart because like I recognize the name, but that might be because I'm in like the LA area.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably
Yeah,
going to be a little more prone to hear it than me.
no, he's their starting left corner. So
Good for him, man. Good for him.
yeah,
He's coming out of nowhere as far as I know.
yeah. So anyways, he was arrested in Hollywood after a traffic stop with two misdemeanor gun offenses, carrying a concealed firearm and carrying a loaded firearm.
Okay.
I guess in the Arizona game he played all but 8 of the defensive plays. So I mean,
Yeah, he's their guy, dude.
yeah, he's
And,
their guy.
and I'll say
But
this, man. It was kind of strange going back to the original move to bring Ramsey in to Los
mhm,
Angeles because they had been sneaky good at drafting mid to late round defensive backs at
mhm,
cornerback and at safety and getting a lot of production out of those guys, man.
mhm. So anyways, but he's expected to play, but I just think like it's another instance of an NFL player being arrested, and which could lead to possible suspension by the league because
Yep,
it's per the conduct policy.
I got you. Okay.
And the Rams defense has been pretty good. So
Yeah, they've surprised a lot of people, me included. I'd say more so on offense, but yeah, you can't discount the defense because they've been playing well too.
yeah, like so. I mean, it's just something to kind of look out for on it. Like, I mean, the defense passing yards. I mean, they're allowing 250 passing yards per game. Only 6 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So I mean it's something to look out for if he's suspended and what that might do to the Rams down
Yeah.
the line. But we'll see.
All right, what else on the news, man?
Those were the only 2 things on the news that I saw. Like
Well, then
I
we got
mean,
our surprise games.
yeah, our surprise games.
Yeah, I'll let you just take this one because there's some blatantly obvious ones.
Yeah, like I don't know which one to start with. I'm going to start with probably the biggest surprise is is the Jets beating the Eagles.
Oh, see, I would have gone the other way, but tell me why.
I would. The reason I didn't go the other way is because I talked about it when we were doing our picks last week. Cleveland's defense is like the number one defense in the league against
Yeah, that's
and
true. I guess I
so
just look at the Jets defense as being one of the top units too.
right, the Jets defense is one of the top units, but with I
But
mean,
Cleveland has been on a tear. I mean, they're
yeah,
on a different level defensively right now.
yeah, exactly. But like the Jets, with with I'd say it's more of a surprise because of Zach Wilson. Like, yeah, I don't even remember who started for the Browns.
Oh, I think they had PJ Walker.
Yeah, yeah, PJ Walker is probably not the best quarterback, but Zach Wilson is the surprise there is he's regularly he's put to back back to back good no back three in a row because we talked about it two or
The
3 weeks
Kansas
ago
City game.
with the Kansas City
Yeah.
game. Then it was I just who did I get it Yeah, we talked about the Kansas City game. Then, even though they lost, then the because he outplayed Mahomes in the Kansas City game, he played really good against the Broncos, and then he played pretty good against the Eagles. And it's the surprise is the reason it's more surprise is because he's putting back games together,
Yeah, maybe he's
and
turning a corner.
maybe he's turned that corner, and I'm gonna have to reconsider what I think of the Jets. I agree. The San Francisco Browns game that was a surprise, but it wasn't as big of a surprise because of what I said. Plus,
I just
it's a
figure, hey,
West.
you're a powerhouse team. You're going up against a team with a backup quarterback. I know they got a great defense, but man, I just thought you win that one like 99 out of 100.
Right, but also it was kind of uh, they were coming off like wasn't it short rest because wasn't the San Francisco Cowboys game like Monday night?
Oh, I didn't think about that. It could have been, yeah.
When was
That's all right. It's actually, honestly, it's kind of good for them that they lost because now it's like you don't have to worry about being perfect. It's like, hey, you lost one, whatever.
Mhm.
Just focus on the next game, man.
Yeah, and plus like it's that Brock Purdy streak that
Yep.
they finally snapped it,
What
and
was it,
they
10 games?
right. It was 10 games, but also the reason the 49ers lost, if you watch the game flow, um, is because I'm going to double check this, but I believe they missed a game-winning field
Yep.
goal
Yep. Their rookie out of U of M went
with like a
wide right,
minute and a
man.
half, like a minute and a half left in the game.
Yep.
So like they were right there. It's just that they didn't make the field goal. So they did everything to win the game. They just didn't win the game. Where Philadelphia, like that game,
Oh, Hertz gave it away, man.
yeah, Hurts gave it away. Like I mean, Philadelphia didn't score at all in the second half. Three interceptions for Hurts. It's like both like rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown, and they shut down the Swift.
Yeah, so I'm looking at it right now, and Jake Moody missed two field goals in that
Yeah,
game.
exactly.
He's been okay other than that, but man, it's tough because they drafted him so fucking high
Mm-hmm.
for a kicker, man. And
Mm-hmm.
that's tough. It's like basically the expectation is you're going to be, a fucking all-pro kicker right out the gate, man.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Those were my two biggest surprise. Like, there's other games sprinkled in there that could be considered surprise. Like, but it's not the result of the game. It's
Yeah.
it's
I
like
like the
the
Giants game,
score.
man. I thought that was a
Yeah.
surprise that they took Buffalo all the way to the end, basically,
Right. Right. And that, but the outcome. I was looking more at like the outcome being a surprise versus
Hmm.
the versus the like
Yeah, like
score
the
of the and how.
performance itself.
Yeah. And like Tyrod Taylor is different, and I think he's a better quarterback than Daniel Jones. Like I said
Yeah.
it. Does Tyrod? I believe I said it last week. Does I question whether Tyrod Taylor starting um, made the team better? Plus, when I look at my
He
let's see.
reminds me of like a poor man's Alex Smith. I'm
Hmm.
just being honest. He is so fucking safe with the football. He
Yeah,
may never be flashy, but man, if you've got a good team, he will help you get over the hump because he's never going to lose a game for you.
yeah. And the one thing about the Giants game is my model picked the Giants score exactly in that game,
Oh, gotcha.
which I thought was interesting. I had 34, not 14 for Buffalo, but
Gotcha. Uh,
yeah, I was sweating that because, like I said, that was my survivor pick last week.
oh, yeah. Yeah, you told me
I
that.
was
Yeah.
I was like sweating that. I was like, oh my god, am I gonna lose because
Here we
fucking
fucking go.
yeah. I've had a couple of
Yeah.
close ones. I didn't like any of the games this week for fucking Survivor
Yeah.
picks.
Well, I tell you what, it did burn me a little bit because in one of my fantasy leagues, I had Buffalo's defense, and at like the 11th hour, it was too late for me to switch to my other defense because they had already
Mm.
played. But it had dawned on me before that game started, oh shit, Tyrod Taylor, he's probably not going to get sacked much, and he's probably not going to throw a lot of interceptions.
Hmm.
I was like, oh no, I picked the wrong defense. And I ended up losing the fucking game by 2 points. So it was like, yep, I fucked that
If
up.
you started the other defense, would you have won?
I didn't even go back and look because I was like, woulda, coulda, shoulda. It doesn't even matter. But let's just see. Let's just see. Oh, dude, if I would have started the other defense, I would have just barely won. Shit. Shit. I would
That
have won by
sucks.
a half a point. Oh,
So I think
that's
it
why
was
you don't
this.
look back, James. You just keep looking forward.
So I did something this last week in both my leagues that might be controversial to some people. So going in after Sunday's games, I was winning. I was winning by 5 points, and I had my kicker going,
Yeah. And your opponent was shut down?
and my opponent was
Oh, I
shut
know where
down.
you're going with this.
So I benched my kicker and just
Yep.
like I got this. Like I didn't want to risk anything, especially because I mean it was what's his face for Dallas was my kicker.
Oh yeah, that foreign guy.
Yeah,
What was he,
Brandon
like a
R.
fucking rugby
Up.
player or some shit?
Yeah. So I didn't want to risk it. I
Yeah.
I didn't I don't think it would have mattered.
Well, yeah, you never know. You maybe you miss one and you get one blocked or something, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I got
Mhm.
fucking -6. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a savvy veteran fantasy player move that you made there. Although I will
Yeah.
say, and you and I have talked about this before, I know buddies, some of them that are commissioners of other leagues, that would go fucking nuts if someone did that because they're like, no, you have to fill your roster. You can't do that. And it's like, I disagree, dude. It's just being smart with your matchup because if you
Mhm.
recognize your opponent is done, there's no reason for you to risk it when you know you got it in the bag.
Exactly. Like it wouldn't have mattered. He was 2 for 2 on field goals. He was 2 for 2 on extra points. It wouldn't have fucking mattered.
Yeah.
But you can't
Why
take
take the
that
chance?
risk,
No.
especially seeing as though like I started out 0-4. I need the fucking win.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, all right, I get it. If you're like maybe in one of the leagues like we've got where you can get like weekly high points awards and shit like that, maybe you keep going if you think you're close to getting that, you know? Otherwise, there's no reason at all to make that move, man. You just fucking sit the dude, take the win, man. A
Yeah,
win's a
and
win.
that's the thing is I was 30 points. I would have needed 30 points for my kicker to fucking take the weekly
Yeah.
high.
Yeah. So it doesn't
That ain't
matter.
happening.
Yeah.
And then in my other league, I did the same thing. It wasn't as close. Like I was up by like 35, and we do IDP in that league, and I had like a defensive player playing, and it's like no, I'm just gonna take the win.
Yeah. No reason to risk it.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, why don't we move on and let's do our week 7 power rankings, my man. And I think
All
you're
right.
excited to kick this off. So
I'm
whenever you're
I'm
ready.
fucking ready. Um, so there's a shakeup in my top five. Last week, my top five stayed the same. This week, everybody in my top five changed. I previously had Philadelphia or San Francisco, Philadelphia, Dallas, Detroit. No, wait a minute. San Francisco, Philadelphia, Dallas, Detroit. Um, so this should be my number 1, 2, 3. Ah, that's why. Okay, 5, 3, 1, 2. Yeah. So what threw me off was my minus. Like misput a number. So this week after San Francisco, Philadelphia lost, I took Detroit from number 4 to number 1.
Yeah.
When I sit down and look at it, I see yours, and I'm going to hear your argument. The most impressive thing I have seen this season is the Lions in Week 1 beating Kansas City, and then going down to Tampa Bay and putting the beat down on Tampa Bay
Yeah,
this
with the
past
number
week.
2 defense.
Yeah, that's more impressive than anything Kansas City's done. That's more impressive than anything Miami's done, anything Buffalo's done, anything Philadelphia's done, and anything that San Francisco's done.
I mean, 70 points by Miami, that's pretty impressive, but I got you.
Against Denver. And then they turned around and lost by like 38
I mean,
to
Kansas City only put up
Buffalo.
19 against Denver last week, man.
Well,
That's
yeah.
just helping your point of leapfrogging Kansas City.
So then number 2, I know I've always had Detroit ahead of Kansas City since the win. Like I've kept them there because I have concerns about Kansas City, but how it kind of fell this week.
Yeah.
I have Kansas City at number 2, and Kansas City went from 5 to 2. And I'll explain this when I get to 5 a little bit more. San Francisco and Philadelphia both dropped down 2 spots off the loss. Yeah, they were close-ish games. I considered dropping Philadelphia behind my number 5 team, Dallas, but I think Philadelphia overlooked the Jets because of the simple fact that when it boils down to this week is Philadelphia, Miami.
Okay. Yeah, they want to get ready for that.
Yeah. So I didn't kill them that much for losing to the Jets. Then at number 5, I have Dallas. And yeah, Dallas won. And yeah, I dropped Dallas down 2 spots off the win. Reason I dropped them down 2 spots off the win is because I have some serious concerns on what I'm seeing in Dallas. That game against the Chargers, yeah, they won 20-17. But if you remember the game flow, like we were talking about it. It was both teams' first 3 drives. Dallas didn't score on their first drive. Then Chargers scored on their first drive. Dallas scored on their first drive, and then there wasn't any other scoring until like the 4th quarter of that game.
Yep.
And I have serious concerns about the play calling in Dallas. I have serious concerns about just that team as a whole. And so Dallas dropped down 2 spots off the win.
Yeah, Michael Gallup dropping passes left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Cooks hasn't been the number 2 they thought he was going to be. And I'm going to be honest, this is just my opinion. I'm really starting to think Tony Pollard's better in a combo role with a guy that's a hammer back, because him being the lead guy, I don't know. And it's okay, this is how it works sometimes, and I'm hoping the best for him, but it's just my opinion. So
no, and I'm coming around to that too, because that's what I see as well.
yeah, and some of it could just be the play call. So I don't want to like definitively, put it on him like that. But all right, so James, my 1 through 5 got a nice shake up as well. And so instead of moving the Lions to 1, which believe me, my man, I was tempted to do, because the Lions, they're playing amazing team football, and it just really impresses me, okay? But I opted to move Miami up from 5 to 1. And, I think that Miami, here's how I'm going to look at it. When good teams lose a game, it's like a blip on the radar. Like I give them one where it's like, okay, I'm not going to totally fucking smoke you because everybody's going to, take their eye off the ball here and there and have something happen. Kind of why I never put Detroit above Kansas City because to start the year, I was like, well, shit, they had two of their bigger guys out. Maybe
Hmm.
that's just their blip on the radar game. And it just turns out that there's never been a reason now to like go and make that move without disrupting my board. It's not that I can't do that, I just haven't wanted to do that. But
Hmm.
so Miami, their blip on the radar was against Buffalo, which is still one of my top teams. And then aside from that, they've just been on a tear offensively that we've not seen any other teams come close to. And so I just thought, okay, I'm putting Miami on there. I'm still banking on Vic Fangio getting that defense more in gear as the season goes on. And I see a very high ceiling for them based on their talent and what they've got going on. That's the only reason I opted for them instead of the Lions. Plus it's just hard with the Lions, man. Man, God, I want them to be the number one team, but I also don't want to jinx them and then be kicking myself because it didn't work out and whatever else. And so if they keep winning, they'll get their time, my man. Uh,
Hmm.
but so then at 2, I've got the Chiefs. Because the Chiefs were at 2 last week, I thought, man, maybe I move them up to 1. But I just thought no, because they barely beat Denver. And like you're saying, they're having issues. They're still finding ways to win games. And so I haven't dropped them. But I just definitely couldn't move them to 1 because they're not winning convincingly.
Hmm.
And so then at 3 with Philly, I dropped them down 2 spots. They were previously at 1. And it's tough because the Jets defense is great, but Jalen Hurts imploded. And that basically paved the way for the upset. And we've seen it all year with Philly, whether it's on offense or defense. They're having a little bit of like, I don't want to say streakiness, but it's inconsistency. So I don't know,
Hmm.
whichever way you want to put it. But um, and they were finding ways to win up until now. They got bit in the ass. They really got to lock it up and correct it and move forward. If not, this could be problematic. And then at 4, a similar kind of thing to the Philly game. Brock Purdy finally had a bad game, and sort of that implosion helped pave the way for Cleveland to win that game. But I agree, like you talked about earlier, some of that is just because Cleveland's defense is probably the best in the league. I mean, they're
Yeah.
just like playing on a different level, man.
And Brock, I disagree with with your comment. Brock Purdy had an implosion. Like in that game, they did everything they needed to do to win, but their kicker missed 2 field goals.
Oh, I know, but fuck, man. All right, so I don't know how his stats ended up for the game, but it was like the one stat they showed me. I mean, he was like way under 50%, man. Let me see if I can find something just to.
So he was 12 for 27, 125 yards, 1 interception, 1 touchdown. But that's consistently in line with his stats in every game. Like um
His completion percentage has been a lot higher than that normally.
his completion percentage has been in the 60s normally. He had like that phenomenal game against Arizona, but he okay. I'm not going to argue as much with you because looking at it, it does make more sense to say that, but
Yeah, and
to say
maybe I'm
like
harsh on it by saying it was an implosion. It was just a
yeah,
bad game,
yeah,
and a bad game against a good defense.
exactly.
Um, And so, yeah, and then at 5, I've got the Lions. So I had them at 6. I moved them up 1 spot. I like the win at Tampa Bay. Crazy excited, nervous as well. I like having them in my top 5. The only reason I didn't go higher is because both San Francisco and Philly basically got their blip on the radar game for me. And so I didn't want to smoke either of those teams. With that
Hmm.
being the case, it kind of blocked Detroit's ceiling. And so I was between Detroit or Miami making the big move, and I opted for Miami.
Yeah. So for me at 6, I have Miami. I didn't move Detroit last week after beating Carolina. Miami beat Carolina by basically the same score as the Lions did. Um, I think there's like a 3-point difference. The Lions beat them 42-24, and Miami beat them 42-21. So I'm not going to move Miami after winning that game. At 7, I have Buffalo. Buffalo moved up 2 spots for me. It's more of teams ahead of Buffalo lost, and so this is kind of where they fell type of thing, versus me really thinking the win over the Giants was impressive. It wasn't impressive.
Yeah.
8, I have the Chargers. This one, I didn't know what to do. I didn't really know what to do with the Chargers. I wanted to kill them because, again, it was the same thing. Play calling was an issue in that game. But they did lose to a team that I had in my top 5, and the teams right behind them lost. And then I have Cincinnati at 9, and I didn't see Cincinnati as better than the Chargers right now. I think there's problems in Cincinnati. I was all set to drop Cincinnati this week, but they got 2-spot bump because teams ahead of them lost and they beat Seattle, because I had Seattle then Cincinnati, and I was set to drop Cincinnati, but then I would have had to really killed Seattle.
Yeah,
And
that's kind of what I had to do. But yeah,
I didn't feel like doing that. So Cincinnati got a 2-spot bump, and then Atlanta, I dropped them 3 spots. Atlanta,
they're falling out of favor with me, man.
yeah, exactly. They're really falling out of favor with me. Like, I considered a stronger drop for them, but I wanted, with the teams that I had right behind them losing, it kind of fell at 10 for me for now. I am going to probably, if they have another performance like they did this past week, I probably will drop them down closer to 15, depending on what else happens around them.
Sure.
But they're, like you said, they're complete. I'm out. I'm out on the Chargers. I'm out on Atlanta.
Yeah, you got them on thin ice. All right, so yeah, for me at 6, I got Buffalo, and so even though they got the win, I dropped them 2 here, and this was just me looking at it saying, geez, man, the Giants are one of my bottom tier teams. I didn't like it. I've been suspicious of Buffalo all year, and so I just said, nope, I'm doing an adjustment here. I'm overriding even though they won. And then at 7, I've got Dallas. I didn't move them. You know, it was nice they beat a team in my top 10, but the board kind of blocked them. And you know, I didn't make this note, but it's similar to everything you're saying about the Chargers, man. There's so many things wrong with teams this year. It's blowing my mind, man.
Mm-hmm.
And so then at 8, I've got Cleveland. It is really high for Cleveland without Watson playing, but their defense is phenomenal. And you know, you would think hypothetically when Watson does come back, whether it's this weekend or next, you know, it should give that offense a boost. So, and then at 9, I've got Jacksonville. I moved them up 2. I know that Indy was an inferior opponent, but I thought the win that they got was dominant, and so I gave them a 2-spot bump. And then at 10, I've got the Chargers. And so I didn't want to ding them because I had Dallas higher up than them in my power rankings. And when I start looking at teams below here, I kind of had arguments for maybe just keeping them where they were at, which is what I ultimately decided to do. And part of it, too, I want to point out, if I just go over here, is, you know, there were some bye weeks. So we had Pittsburgh on a bye and we had Green Bay on a bye. And, you know, we talked about this, I think, last week, where when bye weeks start coming into play, it can do some weird things on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, just keeping that in mind.
Yeah, that's going to come on my board at like not this one, next one, in the 15 through 20 or 16 through 20. At 11, I have Seattle. I dropped them 1 spot. I had Seattle at 10, Cincinnati at 11. Cincinnati beat Seattle, so it's natural to move Cincinnati up. I'm natural to switch them, but then with Atlanta, I'm out on them, but I don't want to kill them too much because I think there's a lot of talent on that team. They're just not playing up to it
Sure.
with Atlanta. So I put Cincinnati down to 11, dropped them one spot. Baltimore, they moved up one spot. Baltimore, Cleveland, Jacksonville, all three of those moved up one spot. It's not because of really their wins, because their wins, these teams' wins weren't, well, besides Cleveland, they weren't that impressive.
Yeah.
I dropped the team way down, and this was before, and I don't know if I dropped them far enough, and we'll get to them in a little bit. And then I have Vegas at 15. They kind of benefited from the team right ahead of 17, dropping one down, and the team right ahead of them that was right ahead of them lost. So I just bumped Vegas up, even though I'm not impressed by beating New England 21-17, and I'm not impressed with what I see in Vegas. Is just kind of what was happening on the board here.
Yeah, I gotcha. All right. Well, yeah. So for me, at 11 through 15, this is where these bye weeks come in, and sometimes there's some funkiness. And so for me, I've got Pittsburgh at 11, which ended up being a rare bye week bump on the board. And part of this was that I wanted to maintain this at least temporary harmony where I've got Pittsburgh above Baltimore, even though I think long term Baltimore is the better team. Early in the year, when you look at the way these teams have played, Pittsburgh beat Baltimore, Baltimore beat Cincinnati, blah, 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 blah. And so, like, they were just so close on my board. That's the pecking order right now. I got Pittsburgh at 11, Baltimore at 12, Cincinnati at 13. And, I think it's going to sort itself out in the next couple of weeks where Pittsburgh falls, Baltimore goes up. And then Cincinnati, I don't know, they might just sit here and chop sideways because they've been looking really, really off this year. But, I do believe Pittsburgh is inflated on my board right now. And then at 14, I've got Seattle. And so I kind of felt stuck between a rock and a hard place with this one. I didn't really feel like I could keep them above Cincinnati because it wasn't like a blip on the radar game for them. They've had more losses this year. And so with it being sort of like within arm's reach of Cincinnati, I moved them down 4 spots to put them right below Cincinnati. And then at 15, I've got the Jets. And so I bumped them up 2 spots. And, I was a little tempted to move them higher because I wanted to give them a lot of credit for beating Philly. But I just am still worried about their prospects on offense. And so I didn't want to get carried away. But I did want to show them a little bit of love. So back to you at 16, man.
At 16, I have Tennessee. They didn't move. They lost to Baltimore, who I had rated higher, plus the team that was right behind them lost. And it's just, no, I'm sorry. The team that was right behind them won, which I moved up ahead of them. And then I dropped the team that I had way ahead of them, way down. It's just kind of weird things going on with my board right in here. 17, I have Minnesota. They got a 2-spot bump off of beating Chicago. I understand. This is because unless I have a really good argument, I won't move a team that was on a bye week, which was Pittsburgh at 18. And so they stayed the same. So Minnesota got the benefit of Pittsburgh being on a bye week and dropping down the team I have at 20, which I dropped down from 12. 19, I have Houston. They beat New Orleans, who is my 20 team. So I raised, once I came down to it, I put Houston up 2 spots, dropped New Orleans 8 spots to 20. I don't think 8 spots was enough after what I saw last night. I did this before last night's game, and there's problems there. There's a lot of problems there. It's inaccuracy, receivers dropping balls. Derek Carr is not looking like Derek Carr.
Yeah.
He's
validating what a lot of coaches have said. is that he's just not at that level to really truly be a franchise quarterback. He is
Yeah,
good and he has the potential, but it just like it shows here and there. It just doesn't stay there.
and New Orleans is a team that should have reset a couple years ago
Yeah.
when Drew Brees retired and when they lost when Sean Payton retired. They should have reset.
Quit. I call it quitting.
Sorry, quit. Yeah,
Yeah, because
thank
he
you.
came back. He didn't retire. He came
Yeah,
back.
when Sean Payton quit, like they should have pressed the reset button 2 years ago instead of coming into this year. What they did was paid $100 million for a quarterback, and that's what you get.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna add on to the Sean Payton thing because I call it quitting because you know as well as I do, he left because the next season they were going like into the year like 70 million over the
Hmm.
cap. And so instead of facing that problem, he fucking pussied out and quit and left and let somebody else hold the fucking bag. And then as soon as enough time passed, he came back in and jumped to a team that he thought had a franchise quarterback that he could turn around, and now he's getting some fucking karma shoved right up his ass, man. My opinion.
Yeah, no, I'll give you that.
And I like Sean Payton, and so it just blows me away that all this is happening, but he does deserve some of this shit. So, as much as I like a guy, I will feed him to the wolves when he pulls some bullshit, man. All right, so it's 16 for me. I've got Tampa Bay. I dropped them down one spot. Really wish we could have seen more out of their offense, especially because they were playing at home, but it didn't happen. And then the board, really, it kind of helped them from sliding further because I was tempted to go lower. And then at 17, this is where I like what you did with Houston and New Orleans because I did something similar, but it was like to the upside for Houston, man. I moved them up 9 fucking spots. And it may seem a little bit ridiculous, but they're just overperforming. And the first couple weeks, I was really worried that it was going to be a really down year for them. And then we saw a pop where it was like, oh shit, here we go. And then it kind of regressed, but now it's popping again. And so it's like, I just want to give them that love while I can.
Yeah,
And then it's seven.
I don't think Houston at 17 is ridiculous. Where my board fell, with not wanting to move Pittsburgh, I wanted to move Houston up more. And if Minnesota would have lost or had like some serious issues against Chicago, or if it was a different team that one of my bottom teams it could have been differently. I could have seen them at 17, but just how the board fell, I couldn't justify moving them up past 19.
Oh yeah, no, I
So
get it.
17 is
I
not
was
ridiculous
more
there.
looking at the nine swing move on my side. Maybe that being a
Yeah,
little bit ridiculous because I was
right,
probably
right,
too
but
down on them
that's also
before.
exactly. That's because you were too down on them before. I jumped on the bandwagon
Yeah.
before you.
Well, and I did, and then I aborted it. It was like,
Mhm.
oh, they won. I jumped on it, and they lost, and I aborted it. It's like, hey, that's what I get for, you know, fucking being streaky. But yeah, and so then at 17, or I'm sorry, at 18, I got the Rams. I moved them up 7, and that was one of these ones where and I did something similar like a week or two ago, where there's chunks of teams in my board where it's just like we got like groups of almost like equally shitty teams. And I took this week as a way of saying, I'm going to reset that particular stack. And for me, it was moving the Rams up above some of these other teams like Washington and Atlanta because I do see the coaching and the quarterback and Aaron Donald and all that with the Rams. And I'm seeing the potential is still there, even though going into the season, I never would have expected this. But they are now 3-3. And so it's like, okay, they kind of belong somewhere in here in this middle part of the board. And then at Washington, I've got them at 19. I moved them up 4 spots, probably a little bit more than I wanted to, but this is another one of those kind of arm's reach things where if I moved them up 4 and I moved Atlanta down 4, it kind of put them in harmony on the board. And I was really kind of gung ho on boosting Houston and Los Angeles anyhow, which was just going to naturally force Atlanta down. I was going to have them down 3, so I figured why the fuck have them not go down 4 and Washington be above them. So my logic for that. Back to you at 21, my man.
21, I have the Rams. They got 2-spot bump. Like they dominated Arizona, but also it's a factor of I. There's a team in here that I really killed, and I didn't. It's just it ended up being 2 spots for them, and they lucked out. But it's kind of what went on around the board for them. Just gave them 2 spots. Washington 2-spot bump. I'm sorry, Indianapolis. I didn't move them. I thought for a portion of the game, Indianapolis played fairly well. I think they're still getting in their stride with Jonathan Taylor and the Gardner Minshew, so I didn't want to really kill them. It was a divisional game, and I also moved a team that I had ahead of them back down further to kind of align to where they should be. So Indianapolis stayed the same. Washington at 23, 2 spots. Team ahead of them moved, and I jumped because Tampa Bay had lost. I jumped them ahead of Tampa Bay, who didn't move at 24. If the game was closer, I probably would have moved Tampa Bay up for it if they showed something. I'm way too down on Tampa Bay this year.
Yeah, 6 points is just too low, man.
Exactly. Right. 6 points is too low to move them up, but like I'm hesitant to move Tampa Bay up high on the board, even though they're winning games, because I don't trust Baker Mayfield.
I know, and I think my tendency with them is that it's like I've got maybe a little similar of a mind frame with them and the Jets, where I'm like, man, their defenses are just so good. Like I'm letting them hang in there because it's like if they could do anything on offense, they should be able to win some games. But no, I mean it's not always the right logic. So
speaking of the Jets moved up 2 spots off the win for Philly.
Yeah, and you got Tampa Bay and New York right, kind of like how I got them. You just got them further down.
Yeah, and I have them flipped, but I was out on these teams, and they have to do a lot to prove it because of what, like coming into the season, I was out on Tampa Bay, and I don't trust Baker Mayfield, so I'm kind of hesitant to move them up. And then when the Jets lost Aaron Rodgers, I was already down on them, but that really made me down on them with Zach Wilson, and I'm hesitant to move them too far up my board because I don't trust the quarterback until he shows. And I think it's going to take like another couple weeks of good games for him to show that he can consistently do it for me, and I can consider moving him up.
Yeah, there's too much bad history to just say, oh, you got a couple in the bag, we're going to forget about all that.
Yeah.
All right, well, before I get to my side, I do want to say something about Tampa Bay, because where and when I can, I want to throw some love out to the Central Michigan guys in the NFL. Luke Gadecki, he had a rough rookie year last year trying to play guard. He was a right tackle at Central Michigan. They bumped him into guard. I thought it was going to work out, like size-wise. He does look like a prototypical kind of guard at the NFL level. It was a disaster. This year, they have bumped him out to right tackle. And, man, he has been playing way fucking better. And so I'm giving that dude some fucking props because Tampa Bay's offensive line, they've retooled it this year. And so even though it has some of the same faces, they're getting way more production out of that offensive line. And so just wanted to throw him some props, man. All right, so 21 through 25. I've got the Raiders at 21. I know you know that I don't like McDaniels, blah, 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 blah. I didn't want to bump them. Kind of the same reasons like you mentioned earlier. They just barely beat New England. And New England is like so fucked this year. Beating New England is not like it was 5 years ago. 22,
it's not like it was 2 years ago.
yeah. 22, I got Green Bay. So yeah, unlike Pittsburgh, these guys were on a bye, and so I didn't move them. 23, I've got the Saints. I dropped them down 5. I kind of covered it just like you did with Houston and New Orleans and all that, blah, blah, blah. 24, Minnesota. I was tempted to bump them at least one spot, but then they would have been higher than New Orleans, which, it's kind of like you're saying. If I would have done these after last night, maybe I would have done that. But because it was before last night, I really feel like they're still a stronger team than Minnesota. And even with last night, I guess let's see how Minnesota plays this weekend. But um, I'm just not digging either of these teams, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. And then at 25, I've got the Colts. I dropped them down 6, one of my bigger moves. This was really just an emotionally driven drop because of the Richardson news. And so I'm floating them down sort of towards the bottom tier until I see what Jonathan Taylor and Gardner Minshew and these guys can do now that they know Richardson's out for the season. So
26, I have the Giants. I didn't move them. Yeah, they lost. A lot of weird things are happening on my board here in this range because of Green Bay being on a bye and like basically every team in this range losing besides
yeah,
Green Bay. So I didn't want to move Green Bay, but I also moved a team that I had ahead. I had another 8-spot jump, which we'll get to at 28. So that caused Arizona to move up one spot off the loss. Then at 28, I have Carolina. I would have dropped Carolina further, but I absolutely didn't want to move Green Bay. Carolina is not. They're not the team I thought they were going to be this year. I thought they had pieces, and
yeah,
they should probably definitely be sellers at the trade deadline if they do anything. They should. They have a lot of pieces they need. I don't know if a wide receiver being one of them. 29 Green Bay, they were on a bye. I didn't move them. 30 New England, didn't move them. They lost.
I gotcha. Yeah, so it gets pretty easy for me from here on out. At 26, I got Tennessee. They lost. I dropped them down 6. And with them just being at 2 and 4, there's not much to get excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, man, they have like grossly outperformed their talent level, but this year it just isn't happening. And so, also, it looks like they could. I don't know, because I didn't see an update on Tannehill, but I heard he might have been out for this weekend with whatever injury he got that knocked him out of last week's game. But, come to think of it, when I went through the quarterback injuries, he didn't show up on my report today. So I don't know if that changed or if I just missed it.
Um, that would be because Tennessee is on a bye this week.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah. So, but, that's a huge concern if he misses significant
Yeah,
time.
it is.
Uh, yeah. And so then at 27, from here on out, all of the teams on my list lost. And so I didn't move any of them. And it starts with the Patriots, then it's the Broncos, then the Bears, and then the Giants. And so give me your dumpster fire, my man.
Dumpster fire. Both teams in my dumpster fire lost. No reason to change them. Chicago at 31. 32 is Denver. Chicago beat Denver. It's natural for them to be above Denver.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm the same here. I've got Arizona and Carolina in my dumpster fire. And oh man, you pointed that out with Chicago and Denver. Now I'm looking at it. I've got Chicago one below Denver, but I'll worry about that later. Yeah, so it's hard to make any changes when they all lose. So it's
Yeah.
yeah. All right, those are the power rankings, man. You want to take it from here?
All right. Picks of the week. So last week, let's go through this. You had 8. I had 7. Gives me 49 total correct through the season, or 53%. You're at 57 correct, or 61%. We both were on Jacksonville last night, even though I had said initially New Orleans, but after the game last week against Houston, and then looking at it, I actually had Jacksonville. I changed to Jacksonville shortly before kickoff. I was hesitant because of Trevor Lawrence, but so we got that right. We're starting the week off at on a good note. First up, we have probably the game of the week. Detroit Lions at the Baltimore Ravens. So interestingly, Lamar Jackson is 15-1 in his career against NFC opponents
Okay.
and 7-0 at home. His only loss is last year against the upstart Giants.
Gotcha.
Um,
God, and I just think a couple of years ago we had them, and then fucking Tucker had that crazy ass field goal from a fucking
Record
mile
field goal,
away.
65-yard NFL record.
Yeah.
So my model has this at 24-20 Baltimore.
Okay.
But this is probably, depending on where we go with a couple other things, it's probably going to be my only override of the week. I'm overriding my model and picking the Lions. I just think the Lions are a better team. And another example of that is last week my model had the Lions losing to Tennessee 31-19.
Okay.
So I think my model is too low on the Lions, so I have to tweak it a little bit.
Yeah. No, there's still adjustments to be made, and I'm with you on that, man. And so, like, this is one thing I had to keep in mind for this week in particular because it came up a lot, is that my model has Baltimore winning, but I have Detroit clearly above them in my power rankings. And so, sometimes the model maybe puts a little bit too much weight on the home team or whatever the case may be. And you kind of got to let your narrative or your gut instincts tell you, no, I got to go the other way. And so, like, when I look at my heat map, these teams are trading green and red back and forth all the way down. And then I go back to my power rankings, and I've got Detroit like 7, 8 spots or whatever ahead of Baltimore. And I just want to keep riding that until they tell me otherwise. And I think this is a great test for Detroit because, a lot of people, myself included, have put an asterisk next to that Kansas City game in week one. And aside from that, it's like, okay, where was Detroit's real battle test? They lost to Seattle and, whatever, but this is a legit game. It's on the road against Baltimore. If they win this game, then it's like, oh my God, man, I'm not going to go streaking in the streets, but I'm going to start thinking like, wow, we really do have a real team this year.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Like it's crazy to me. Like this is the second best start in franchise history. The only other time they started this, it was a disappointing year because they tailed off after it, but they started 5-0 in 2011.
Yeah. You got to take a pause, man?
Nope.
Oh,
I just had to respond and then get back to so the next up we have the Vegas at the Raiders. Like there's not much. There's Vegas at the Raiders, Vegas at the Bears. There's not much analysis to do this. The Chicago Bears team's a completely different team without Justin Fields. I don't trust Baget or however you say his name.
Badgett.
Yeah, whatever his name is. Not much analysis I really need to do.
You got a rookie quarterback versus a career backup quarterback.
And
it's
I'm going
not
to take
exciting.
I'm going to take it back. This is another override for me because my model had it at 17-16, but I think when I modeled it, I wasn't considering that Fields was out.
Yeah. So my model, wow, this one just blows me away. My model has this game going to the Raiders by .03. It just goes to show how little my model thinks of both of these teams. And so I think the Raiders should win it, but you never know. I mean, it's two backup quarterbacks, man. It's like it makes it really risky. Plus, it's in Chicago, but I got to give the edge to the Raiders.
All right. Next up, we have the Browns at the Colts. My model has this at exactly the spread. The spread is 3 on it. I have it as a 23-20 game. Interesting fact about this game, the Browns, this is their second road game that they are favored in going into the game, which matches the total from each of the last 2 years. Each of the last 2 years, they only had 2 road games they were the favorite in, and they
Gotcha.
already have 2 this year. The Colts, if Richardson was playing, I might be more in on the Colts, but he's not. I don't care who's playing in the game at quarterback for the Browns. They just with their backup quarterback, they just beat San Francisco, so they can beat
Yeah.
Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, no, I agree. In this one, it's very clear on my model that Cleveland, they're owning the heat map except at running back, and that's because Jonathan Taylor's back for Indy. And so I know he was back last week, but he had a partial workload or whatever. But yeah, I got to go Cleveland here, man. It's like very decisive for me.
Now, next up, we have the Bills at New England. Yeah, you could. There's not much analysis that I did on this
Divisional
game.
game, and
It's a divisional game. New England has fit. Okay, Buffalo is favored by 8.5 points in this game. New England has failed to cover in 9 straight games as an underdog. It's the second. It's tied for the second longest against the spread losing streak as an underdog in the Super Bowl era. That was owned by the 95 to 96 seasons for the Rams. So it was that they were in St. Louis then, where they lost 11 consecutive games against the spread. The Patriots, there's nothing to say good about the Patriots. Bills win the game. My model has it as a 33-10 game for Buffalo.
Yeah, see, this one's weird in my model. I'm taking Buffalo. I'll just put that out there right up at front. But my heat map zigzags almost all the way down, which is surprising. But it still has Buffalo by 10 points despite the zigzag. Usually when it's a zigzag, it's a very close score at the bottom. This one is still very heavily in Buffalo's favor. And honestly, I think my model is still giving more credit than is due to the Patriots. And so, I got to take Buffalo here, man.
Next up, we have the Commanders at the Giants. Interesting nugget about this game for those gamblers out there that I found was in each of the past 6 matchups between Washington and the Giants in New York, the under has hit.
Okay.
And I say each of the past 6 matchups, 17 of the past 20 meetings between these teams in New York have gone under the total.
Gotcha.
This one I'm iffy on for my model, and I'm going to have to do some diving into it a little further. Currently, I have Washington beating the Giants, and I'm going to go with Washington for our purposes here. I think what's going to boil down to is who's starting at quarterback. If Tyrod Taylor's starting at quarterback, that's going to change this matchup for me and in my model.
Sure.
But I missed the fact about the Giants when we talked about them. The Giants have gone 3 straight games without an offensive touchdown.
Oh my gosh, man. I didn't even realize that.
No team. The last time a team went 4 games without an offensive touchdown was the 2008 Cleveland Browns.
Hugh Jackson era?
I think so. I don't remember. And then let me take a look at the 2008 Cleveland Browns.
I didn't like Hugh Jackson. So.
It was Romeo Crennel.
Oh shit! All right, all right.
They were 4-12.
Gotcha.
And it looks like it was the end of the year. Wait a minute. There's no offense. That fact might not be 100% accurate, because if it's accurate. They went 6.
Yeah, shit. Hugh Jackson was their coach 2016 to 2018. I was way off on timing.
Yeah. So I just got to look at this because this is
Sure.
it
Yeah,
might
and
have gone
while you
into
look at that, I'll give you just my on the Giants and the Commanders. And so I'm taking Washington. This one has the Giants actually in my model. I didn't mark it as an override because I have Washington way higher on my power rankings, and I believe this is one of these where my model's not accurately reflecting what's going on with these teams today. And so, you tweak them the best you can week in and week out, but sometimes it's just, it's out of alignment. And so this one I feel pretty comfortable taking Washington. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm doing there, man.
yeah. So for that set, it looks like they finished the season without scoring an offensive touchdown.
Not the whole
'Cause-
year.
No, like week 12. The week 12 they made 2 field goals. Week 13 they made 2 field goals. Week 14 they made 3 field goals. Week 15 they had a pick six, and that was their first touchdown in 4 games. Week 16 they were shut out, and week 17 they were shut out.
Just trying to think of, I'm looking up who they had at quarterback.
Brady Quinn, and then Brady Quinn got hurt, and Brady Quinn got hurt right
Derek
before,
Anderson.
yeah,
He
something like
he
that.
actually wasn't bad for a little while, but um, hmm, not a good situation.
So they had Derek Anderson and possibly Bruce Gradkowski.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, it looks like Derek Anderson
Oh,
got hurt. Ken
yeah,
Dorsey
Derek
got
Anderson got
hurt.
hurt. Ken Dorsey got
Ken
hurt.
Dorsey wasn't good anyhow, but
Yeah. So, anyways, it was
yeah,
they.
Brady Quinn got hurt, but he wasn't good anyhow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just it's just an interesting fact.
Yeah,
It was I'm on the Commanders for now.
sure. Atlanta at Tampa Bay, my man.
Wait, did you
I took the
you didn't?
Commanders.
Yeah, you didn't, but you didn't talk about them. I did a lot
I
of
did.
talking
You
about
were you were reading while I was talking.
them. Oh, okay.
No,
All
I'm
right. Next up,
basically I said that I'm taking Washington, even though my model has the Giants. I didn't put an override note on here because I like very clearly have Washington higher in my power rankings than the Giants, and so there's just something going on in my model that I gotta keep tweaking.
so Atlanta at the Bucks. Desmond Ritter struggles when he's under pressure. His completion percentage is only 52% when he's
No,
when he's pressured. The Bucks blitz second highest amount in the league at 41%. Um, I think if if this was earlier in the year before I was out in Atlanta, I would consider overriding my model because it's so close. Because I had these teams so far apart, and I think actually Tampa Bay is the better team of the two. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay,
I
and
gotcha.
that's what my model had as well. But
Yeah, no, that makes sense, man. Yeah, my model's got Tampa Bay. I still like how strong Tampa Bay's defense has been. This game is in Tampa Bay. And until Atlanta shows more on offense consistently, I know that sounds strange because Tampa Bay only scored 6 last week at home. But I got to give the edge to Tampa Bay.
all right, next up we have the Steelers at the Rams, and I don't know what the fuck your model's looking at for that game, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
My model has it a close game. It's probably because I'm not as in on the Rams and haven't increased them back to a little bit closer to what they are. I have it as Where'd it go? 16-14 win by the Rams. You know how we always talk about Mike Tomlin is always a 500 coach.
Yeah.
In every aspect, he's always at 500 or above. This is another instance that I found that he's at 500 or above. He is 44-40 as an underdog.
Okay.
At 500 or above. It's actually, he's the only head coach in the Super Bowl era to have a winning record as an underdog amongst coaches who have been an underdog more than 50 games.
Nice. Good for him, man.
Good for him. I'm on the Rams. But
you're still taking the Rams.
I'm on the Rams. The Rams rank 4th in yards per completion, 2nd in passing first downs per game. Cooper Kupp and Nakua are playing.
Yeah, that should be tough to stop. Yeah.
Minka Fitzpatrick may get an interception, but I think it's going to be too hard the way the Pittsburgh's playing to stop the Nakua Kupp combination. So I'm going to stick with the Rams.
Sure. Yeah. So my model has it as a 2-point spread going to Pittsburgh's favor.
Mine's exactly flipped.
Yeah, interesting. We were at 2, just the opposite way. And so my model does have a slight boost for teams coming off a bye week. And so I think that might have something to do with it. I'd have to really dig into my formulas here. But when I look at my heat map, it does very obviously favor the Rams on offense. But then I have it goes almost all green for Pittsburgh on defense. And I have the trenches in Pittsburgh's favor. And so it's not that it's impossible. I would say that from a narrative standpoint, I would probably switch to the Rams. But then, I'm also looking at my power rankings, and I've sort of artificially held Pittsburgh up maybe a little higher than they deserve. And so I guess I got to stick with Pittsburgh, man.
All right, next up, we have the Cardinals at the Seahawks. The Cardinals are the underdog in this game. They're currently in the longest streak as being the underdog in a game of 15 games. I'm sorry, longest active streak. This is the second longest streak in Cardinals history, consecutive games being the underdog. From 2002 to 2004, they went 31 consecutive games as the underdog.
Jeez.
Issue here is Josh Dobbs is not Joe Burrow. And this past week, the Seahawks defense held Joe Burrow to 185 passing yards.
Yeah.
What do you think they're going to do to Josh Dobbs? I like Josh Dobbs. I think this is Josh Dobbs' team. Going forward, that might tie into something. I'm not sure if you're with the question of the week or not. But I have Seattle winning 30-16.
Okay.
In my model, and I'm sticking with that.
Yeah, no, I like that. I've got Seattle by almost 10, and I could see it being more for sure. My heat map is almost all green for Seattle. In fact, it only gives the edge to Arizona's offensive line, which I know for sure I need to be boosting Seattle's offensive line. I know we talked about this at the start of the year. It's that lineups, they lag at boosting younger players with their ratings. And I know for sure that their 2 bookends on the offensive line are way overperforming their lineups ratings. And so, but either way, that would only just make it entirely green for Seattle. And so I don't want to overthink it. I'm taking Seahawks, man.
All right. Next up, we have the Packers at the Broncos. Jordan Love can enter some elite company in this game. So currently, Jordan Love has thrown 5 interceptions in his last between the last two games. He's the first Packers quarterback since Brett Hundley to throw multiple interceptions in back-to-back games, which would happen in 2017. If he throws multiple interceptions against Denver, he will be the first quarterback since Brett Favre in 2005 to throw multiple interceptions in 3 consecutive games. I just wanted to knock Jordan Love one last time in this. I have it as a fairly close game, even though Green Bay has like 10 people listed on the injury report. I have Green Bay winning it 24-19. I have no reasons to switch to Denver. Yeah. Denver is just a fucking piss poor shit team, and I'm going with Green Bay, even though I don't like them either.
Oh, I know. No, I've got both these teams lower on my board, and it's it's still a little bit mind-boggling. My model is giving the edge to Denver, but I know that that's because the game is in Denver. If I were to properly adjust for some of this, because I can't get behind Denver. I have Green Bay above in the power rankings. When I look at my heat map, Russell Wilson, he's still playing horrible like he was last year. I don't think he's living up to his lineups rating, the opposite of what I was just saying about the Seahawks. And then Green Bay's defense is still better, better than Denver for sure, in my opinion, but better than they probably get credit for because their offense hasn't been being complimentary to them. I got to go Green Bay here, man.
All right. Next up, we have Chargers at the Chiefs. 3 weeks ago, you asked me about this game. I would say, actually, I'm going to do something crazy here.
Do it.
All right. This is a absolute save the season must win for the Chargers. If they don't win, their season's over. Might as well pack it up, trade away assets.
It's a desperation mode win, is what you're saying.
It's complete desperation mode win for the Chargers. This is Staley saving his job, figuring out how to coach. When I'm going to go with the Chargers. It's just a gut feeling on it.
Sure.
And that's all it is. I have everything lines up towards Kansas City. It's just a gut feeling on it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, my model has almost everything lining up for Kansas City. In fact, the only thing not lining up for Kansas City is the defensive back 4, which I like for the Chargers. But, Kansas City has not lived up to their ratings. And so I would bring them down a little bit, but the Chargers haven't lived up to their ratings either. And so it would still put it in favor of Kansas City. I like what you're saying. The desperation thing could be a factor, but I'm going to stick with Kansas City, man.
All right. Next up, we have the Dolphins at the Eagles. It's the 2 highest rushing offenses in the league. Actually, it's the Dolphins are averaging. It's the top 2 offenses in the league in yards per game. Miami at 498.7, Philadelphia at 395. Top 2 rushing teams, Miami's averaging 181.8 yards per game, Philadelphia 150. It's also the Tagovailoa Jalen Hurts game because they were teammates at Atlanta. Tua took over for Jalen Hurts in the national championship game. Jalen Hurts and never looked back. For as good of a defense as Miami is, the stat that I found was weird is they've gone the last 3 games without forcing a turnover.
Their defense is just not getting there, man. That is the one thing that bugs me about Miami is that you would think going into week 7, Vic Fangio would have that defense starting to hum, man.
Yeah, you would think. Over the past 2 seasons, the Eagles are 12-1 in September and/or October games. The only loss was last week against the Jets, which I think was a trap game. My model has it as a very high-scoring game, 40-33 Philadelphia victory. I I think if the Eagles weren't coming off a loss, I might flip it to the Dolphins, but I think the loss is going to be motivation for Philadelphia.
I gotcha. Yeah, I do agree that that could be some motivation for them, and that could be a factor. Um, in my model, it's very, very close. I mean, you just flip a coin and pick whoever you like here. Normally, with it being in Philly, I might go that way. But I think Philly has been underperforming the model a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and Miami probably overperforming it a little bit. And so I'm comfortable sticking with Miami, especially now since I put them above Philly on my power rankings. But this is another one of these ones where they just zigzag down the heat map. I mean, it's like every other category goes to the other team. And so I'm sticking with Miami, but I think it could be a close one.
We have next up 49ers at the Vikings. Currently, the spread is 7 points in this game. This will be the first time since 2014, if it's at 7 or more, that Minnesota has been a underdog of 7 or more points at home. Thought that was interesting. I don't like Minnesota at all this year. I think there's a lot of problems. A couple weeks ago, it was this past week, I picked against Minnesota because Jefferson being out. I think Cousins is going to struggle in this game,
Yeah.
especially with San Francisco coming off a loss. I think that defense is going to have a lot to prove.
Yeah.
My
And it's a
model
prime
has
time game, right?
It's prime time. It's Monday night. So it's a Monday night game. There's another reason
Yes.
why San Francisco is going to win the game. Everything is stacked against Minnesota, and I'm on San Francisco, as is my model.
Ditto. I don't have to say anything else, man. You covered it very well.
All right, and then since we're doing Wednesday next week, we don't have to deal with the Thursday night game.
Sure.
Next week's Thursday night game. Do you have any closing thoughts?
I do not. Thank you, my man.
All right, so I'll let you take it away with question of the week.
Sure. All right. So, question of the week. I didn't do a ton of work behind this. I just wanted this to be a little bit more of like an open discussion because we have the trade deadline coming on the 31st. And I've been seeing stuff all over the internet. I've been seeing stuff on NFL Network, like left and right, about players that may be on the trade block. Like as you mentioned earlier, some teams are getting ready to buy and some teams are getting ready to sell. Carolina may be a seller. Any of these playoff hopefuls, potential buyers. And by the way, I've heard the Lions are expected to be very active as we get to the trade deadline. Um, we'll see. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what will transpire. But here are some of the names that I've seen getting thrown around. And there's plenty more than this. But Chicago's defensive back, Jalen Johnson, I've been hearing he might be on the block. Denver's wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy. And he even made a comment this week that he doesn't mind getting traded or whatever. So it's like, all right, bud, way to go there. The Giants running back, Saquon Barkley. The Jets running back, Dalvin Cook, even though I really don't know how much of a market he'll have. He's not had like a great season. Uh, Surprisingly to me, but I can understand why people are doing this, and I think this is just pure speculation. But Tennessee running back Derrick Henry, And then Arizona wide receiver Marquise Brown. And there are plenty more. These are just some of them that I picked up before the show. And I just wanted to know if you're hearing of any and any that you think could potentially happen. The one that I only heard the teeniest, tiniest bit of that I think could have a blockbuster impact, and you could make an argument for it if you could work out the salary cap and the compensation for picks and whatever, is Devontae Adams, man. He is growing increasingly frustrated in that offense. He's being outshined by Jacoby Myers, and like not by some small stretch. Jacoby Myers is making like all the clutch plays every week. And I think he wants out, man. I think he wants out. Could he end up going to a team like Carolina that says they want a wide receiver one? I don't know. I don't think Carolina has the draft capital to make that move. I would love to see it because I want to see Bryce Young get one of those guys. I think more than likely for Carolina, it would have to be maybe like a Marquise Brown kind of a guy. And even then, like I don't know. It's just it's tricky, man. And so, like I said, I didn't do a whole lot of dot connecting here. I just kind of wanted it to be open and get your opinion on some of this.
All right. So I'm going to go through the list because after you asked me this question, I started looking
Sure.
into this. I've seen rumors of Danielle Hunter being traded from
Yep.
Minnesota because they're not obviously Jefferson and Cousins aren't going anywhere. I've seen Jerry Jeudy. Hunter Renfrow has apparently been on the trading block since like throughout all of last year.
Mm-hmm.
Devontae Adams. The Panthers granted Terrace Marshall Jr. Permission to seek a trade. I've seen rumors about Kendrick Bourne, Marquise Brown, Paris Campbell, Saquon. I've actually seen rumors that Saquon is going to be traded to Baltimore.
Oh, see, all right. I heard Dalvin Cook to Baltimore, but I think Saquon would be a better fit for them, to be honest.
I hear reading Chase Young and/or Montez Sweat are on the trade block.
I could see Chase Young for sure. Yeah.
The big one.
But Chase Young would only get a late round pick, I gotta believe.
Yeah. The big one I've seen on the trade block, or apparently rumors about recently, is Jeremy Chin from the Panthers.
Yeah, see, I know you mentioned maybe Carolina should be sellers. I guess my only hesitancy is I want to know what those contracts are for the guys because Brian Burns was one of the names that I read about too. I didn't put him on my list, but I would not get rid of a guy like Brian Burns when you're trying to build for the future, because he's for sure a cornerstone of that defense. And really, like what you're talking about is, hey, the defense is like basically there. We just need a couple pieces on offense to get us moving in the right direction. So I would hate to see you like parse off a cornerstone like that. But I get it, like if your season's gone, you got to start thinking for the future.
Yeah, and on top of Jerry Jeudy, I think it's more likely that Jeudy gets traded, but I'm also seeing rumblings about Cortland Sutton. I'm actually seeing rumblings that the entire
like
Broncos
anybody on Denver.
entire Broncos team is up for grabs for the right price.
Yeah.
So
what about Kyler Murray, man? You kind of got a little bright-eyed when we were talking about him earlier and Dobbs
with Kyler Murray, everything. So first of all, Kyler Murray, from what I hear, was ready to come back to practice last week.
Okay.
They chose not to bring him back, not to have him come back last week. They chose to have him come back this week. Everything I'm reading and seeing coming out of Arizona is out on Kyler Murray. Like they were when they extended him. They know they should not have extended him. They fucked up by extending him. But I'm hearing that this is Josh Dobbs' team for the rest of the year. And they're going to be looking to be movers in the draft if Dobbs wins too many games to get a high pick to get one of the two quarterbacks. I'm drawing a blank on on the other
Yeah,
quarterback.
you got the guy from USC, right?
Yeah, you
And
have
then
Caleb Williams, and I'm drawing a blank on the other guy's name. He's like from like North Carolina or Duke or something.
okay.
And well, Penix is now on this list, but yeah, North Carolina, Drake May. So Drake May is scouting on him is that he's looks like he's ready to be in the NFL now. His top two, he lost his top two wide receivers from last year, who's Josh Downs and Antoine Green, and he just what I'm reading about him is he's what's the word? God, I'm just drawing a fucking blank. God damn it. So
I'd help
basically,
you, but I'm behind on my college football scouting here.
basically, what I'm hearing is he's slightly behind Caleb Williams in on the draft boards, and slightly behind his stats this year. He finally this past week got his top wide receiver was deemed eligible, but this year he has 146 completions and 212 attempts, 1,900 yards, 3-to-1 3-to-1 TD to interception ratio. He's already on pace. I mean, his last 3 years, 69% completion percentage. I'm sorry, last 2 years, 69% and 66.2. So he's improved over that. He's improved on his, like, last year he threw 38 touchdowns. And he's North Carolina, who is not a football power at all, they're currently 6-0. They have beat Pittsburgh. They just beat Miami, who was ranked in the top 25. They beat the Big Ten, Minnesota, and put up yards against that defense in Minnesota. They beat South Carolina. Like, they're on a tear, right now. But what I'm hearing on Drake May is he's like right behind Caleb Williams on what he translates into the NFL.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of where the hell Kyler Murray ends up if he's out. Tampa Bay, maybe?
So you have Tampa Bay, possibly, and this is a crazy one, possibly New Orleans.
Yeah, I was just thinking Minnesota if Cousins is gone after this year.
Yeah. Right. No, I'm saying like by the trade deadline they're going to trade Murray.
Oh yeah. We're talking trade deadline.
So it's not going to be it's not going to be Minnesota. Possibly Chicago, depending on Justin Fields' injury, because
well,
Kyler
even
Murray,
then they might be ready to pull the plug on Fields anyhow, man. I've heard a lot of mixed stuff about him.
Yeah, if Fields wasn't injured, he would be on my list as well.
Okay. Shit, Chicago's intriguing, man, because if you're going to pull the plug on Fields, it seems like now's the time. Mm-hmm. Although he's hurt, so it's you're kind of pulling the plug by having someone leapfrog him. Shit, I don't know. What else would you do by the trade deadline?
You also have to remember that they extended him. Indianapolis is an intriguing candidate for it.
Just for a 1-year ride?
For a 1-year ride, and then as backup quarterback to Richardson. Because you could run the same style offense.
Yeah, you got a mobile guy.
And I'm hearing I read that Jonathan Taylor is still not happy with Indy, even though he signed his contract. Yeah. It's just rumblings, nothing nothing too concrete on that, but I'm just reading tea leaves there. That's an interesting prospect. Depending on how Tannehill's injury is, Tennessee's an interesting prospect. Tampa Bay is possibly in the market for a quarterback. Depending on what's going on with Daniel Jones, the Giants could be in the market.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, there's probably like 8 teams, 9 teams that I could see Murray being traded to.
Yeah. I mean, hypothetically for a lot of them, yeah. But it's like I also just I look at the fit and I'm like, man, who wants that baggage? Would Dable want that baggage? Probably not. But if he's starting to feel desperate, like he's got to win some games, then
Exactly. What
the
about New England?
desperation
What
factor.
about New England?
Yeah, it just seems like to me, Belichick would never bring in a guy like him. But I also got to believe
But
Belichick's
but
in
but
desperation
but you
mode
have to
now.
remember, Belichick brought in AB after
Yeah,
Vegas or
yeah,
after the Raiders stuff.
yeah.
Belichick brought in AB. So Belichick is possibly getting into severe desperation mode because of what's been going on there.
No, that's true. But would he do it for a quarterback? Whew, man, anything could happen, dude. Anything could happen. It's like another one. Like it's like Atlanta. Would they make a move for him? It's like, man, I wouldn't like to see him on a team like Atlanta where I believe they're
Hmm.
building character.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I agree with you there, but
yeah,
I don't think Atlanta, I don't think is desperate enough. I think Atlanta likes Ritter.
they
Then
just
they
need to
see a
give him
lot of
time. Yeah,
they just see they need to give him time. I think Tampa Bay is a potential landing spot.
I mean Tampa Bay had the quarterback battle all preseason, so they're
Yeah,
they're showing that they're not committed to Baker
exactly,
Mayfield anyhow.
exactly.
All right. Well, that's all I had for that, man. I just, not like a very clear-cut, direct question of the week, just more about begging that question and seeing what you thought. So,
But also remember, there's the trade that is going to happen. If something happens, it's going to be like the McCaffrey trade last year. It's going to come out of left field, and like I'm seeing, like I saw last year about like I saw rumblings, but nothing really like substantial about McCaffrey being traded.
yeah.
And that's also what I'm seeing with Kyler Murray.
Okay. Bounce him. Bounce him.
I would, but
Yeah.
that's me.
I wouldn't take him, but
No,
that's
I
me.
wouldn't take him either.
All right. Well, that's all I got for question of the week. And that's pretty much all I've got for the show, James. What do you got to say, man? Any closing thoughts?
That's about all I had as well.
All right. Well, hey, man. Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, we'll be doing this Wednesday next week, and same agenda, just going on to week 8. So, like always, man, it was fun. For anybody who's watching, we hope you liked the show. If you did, give us a thumbs up or a like or whatever platform you're on. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. And so, James, I'll catch you later, man.
All right, sounds good. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.